There's a lot of things to be very proud of. In our accomplishments is a very small organization I call a pea shooter sized organization. And I think that from my perspective, the legacy that I leave, the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, is the team. We have almost turned over all of the staff here over the 10 years. There's mostly new people here. There's a few that are still left that are here when I showed up, and really the mixing of the old with the new, the team has really been amazing to watch. You put the right person in a position, and then everybody gels around that person, and the team gets stronger and stronger. And I really see that in our organization for a staff of 20 that manages a multi-billion-dollar suite of projects and programs with very, very few complaints, come to work every day with a smile on their face. They enjoy, for most part, they enjoy their work. I mean, that is really a great legacy, to pick the right people for the right positions and then let them do their jobs. I think that's any manager's or leader's legacy, is just putting those parts together and watching them work.
So I know one of the things staff has appreciated most about you is your open door policy and your willingness to mentor anyone on the team. You know, why is mentorship so important to you?
So before I worked here at Ccta, I worked at the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, and there's a saying, if only I'd known. And if only I'd known earlier about all the mentors that were behind the scenes helping prep me for the next level, and then the next level in Caltrans's organization. And I realized at one time in my career at Caltrans that, wow, I'm a product of my mentors, and I still keep in touch. In fact, one of my mentors called me yesterday. He's in Montana now, Dick Weaver. He used to be the chief engineer at Caltrans, just asking me how I'm doing. And I was telling him that I'm going to retire here pretty soon. I'm going to leave Caltrans, and he congratulated me like a proud father. And so when I got here, I'm very cognizant of the fact that if you don't train your staff, you don't mentor your staff, and then you wonder why you're not delivering on your commitments, well, there's a problem there. And so I have spent a lot of time making sure that our team has access to my calendar. You can go to any meeting that I go to, and there's no secret meetings. And you learn about technology or about project delivery or about planning. And I think it's really paid dividends. And so I'm a product of great mentorship when I was at Caltrans. I'm still getting mentored today, and I try to pay it forward, if you will, so that the people behind me gets the same access and some of the same mentorship that I enjoyed at Caltrans. Now it's a little bit harder here because we are a smaller staff, but I try to do my part in making sure that there's access to the boss's calendar, access to the boss himself here, and provide, assuming that my training is good, they have access to me over the years so that they can learn more about how I got to where I am today.
So looking back over your career at Ccta, you know, is there anything that you remember or want to reflect on from your first month or your first year, kind of in the spirit of, I wish I had known?
One of the things that I think is important that I've learned here, and I've said this a couple of times, is I wish I would have worked here first before I became the director of Caltrans. So I was the director of Caltrans in 2004, 2005. Secretary Senator Wright McPeak and Chief of Staff Pat Clary appointed me as the acting or interim director when Governor Schwarzenegger first got elected in 2004. And I had spent, so 2004, I spent a long time at Caltrans. I was asked to be the interim director. I was there for over a year, and then they hired Will Kempton. And then I was the chief deputy director for probably 4 years. And at the end, when Will left, I was appointed as the director of Caltrans. And then I came to Contra Costa Transportation Authority right after that. In fact, I ended April 15, 2010 at Caltrans. I started April 16th, 2010 at Ccta. And very quickly I realized that I could have done a better job at Caltrans. Now, we did a lot of good things for local agencies. We're helping them get storm damage and things like that fixed. But that isn't consistent throughout Caltrans. And I wish I would have been at a local agency like this and then became the director of Caltrans and really understood the relationship and the need of local agencies to interact with the Caltrans Local Assistance Department, because that's really important. All local agencies don't have the sophistication or the tools to spend federal money, for example. So when the ERA money dropped into California, we passed special legislation because the local agencies said they had $7 or $8 billion of projects ready to go. Typically the state gets about 70% of the ERA, the locals get 30. We passed legislation to flip it. 62.5% went to local agencies, 37.5% went to Caltrans, of which 4 major projects were funded, including the Caldecott tunnel. And then we had some money left over for paving. So that was how we allocated the dollars in California. And I remember distinctly I was getting called on my furlough Fridays by US DOT Undersecretary or Deputy Secretary John Bakari, when are you starting to bill? And so what that told me is you can get a lot of money, but depending on the color of money, you might need help spending it. And now we're lucky that we have a staff here that is able to allocate and use federal money. But that's not the way it is throughout California and probably throughout the United States. And so I think that I might have spent a little more time when I was at Caltrans with the local agency division, making sure that they understood the relationship between small agencies, local agencies, cities, counties, towns, and then the local agency department at Caltrans. Because I think that's really important as we get into stimulus in the future. I mean, money doesn't do you any good if you can't allocate it on a project. And you have to understand, is it going to be shovel ready or not shovel ready? Is it ready to advertise based on federal rules, not your rules? And so all these things I think we need to work on, and we could do a better job of making sure that we're all one California. Residents live in cities, towns, and the county, and they take local roads in normal cases to a state highway or an interstate. They use that to go to work, and then when they come home at night, they go on a local road from their business, or they could be a conventional highway. And in some rare cases, they could probably drive a conventional highway from their business to their house, but that's typically not the way it works. And so I think a better coordination between the state and local agencies on the local assistance side to make sure that we're all working in the same plane and we all have the same tools. And then storm damage is a great opportunity to repair our infrastructure in California, both on a state level as well as a local level.
If you had to pick one project or program, what are you most proud of working on here at Ccta?
I'm going to choose 2 projects. I'm going to choose first the Caldecott Tunnel. It's the first project that I was given when I got this job, just to finally go through construction of the Caldecott Tunnel. And it was a $420 million project, total cost, and we had a time frame to build it. And when I got here in 2010, it was a bad time for our economy. We were in the depths of the recession. But I was also very lucky to come here at that time in the depths of the recession, because interest rates were very low. And so we used Wall Street to bond against future revenue to bring that revenue forward and build infrastructure faster. And so we have literally built 25 years of construction projects that we promised the voters in Contra Costa County over 25 years in less than 10 years, or actually 10 years now, because we have 680, we're just finishing the HOV lane a year early, and 684 is under construction now. But also bid prices were very, very low as well. And so the Caldecott Tunnel project, when I was the director, we funded that project with the largest allocation of ERA money in California and in the United States. And it was on the website of President Obama at the White House. So I was very, very proud of that. And so we worked diligently with Caltrans and others and our contractor, Tudor Perini, to bring that project in under budget and on schedule. And for your risk in construction is when you're underground. So they talk about coming out of the ground. when you're underground, there's all the risk. And so boring almost a mile through a mountain, a meter to a meter and a half at a time, every day a meter, shotcrete, puts the rock bolts in, put the steel lattice in, shotcrete that all in place, let it cure, and then do the same thing again over and over and over till you go through a mile to deliver that project under budget is pretty darn good. It's pretty special. The other project, since you only gave me one, but I'm gonna talk about two, is Gomentum Station. So now it's a test bed. AAA Northern California is managing that on a daily basis for us because it got too big. But that was Assembly Member, or at the time Supervisor Bonilla, telling me go out to this weapons station in Concord and figure out a way of creating smart jobs. And that's really not on my duty statement to go try to figure out a way of converting something into something to create jobs. But I walked out there, or drove out there, and I stood on the bluffs and overlooked where I'm going to build a house, overlooking the valley. There's a little breeze coming up the valley. It's beautiful. No noise. It's absolutely quiet. You hear the hawks, you hear owls. You see all these different animals running around. It's an amazing place. And I said, we're going to create a self-driving vehicle, an autonomous vehicle test bed. And a lot of people didn't know about self-driving vehicles in those days, 10 years ago. And now it's morphed into Gomentum Station, the largest secure autonomous vehicle test bed in the United States. It's got 165 different partners. You've got self-driving vehicles communicating with each other, running around in different stoplights and all that. And you look at the states, and they don't even have these kinds of test beds. And yet, once again, a pea shooter-sized organization develops one of the premier test facilities in the United States, if not the world. And that's a pretty cool project as well.
So talk a little bit about why that project is so special for you. What makes that project personal?
Well, when I was younger, one of the things you didn't ask me about my legacy at Caltrans, but I often say that my legacy at Caltrans is we took a backroom operation that was their research program that was underneath when I was the deputy director for maintenance and operations. It was in the back room. It was budget, it had a budget, and we took that little research program of some great people, and we elevated that to where we were competing for research projects not only in the United States but overseas. We had a partnership with the country of France. Cal France was the program. I think it's been disbanded since, but they had a framework program in Europe that we used to compete for, and so that was a pea shooter-sized organization, staff of about 20 people that were carrying on research and mobility, safety, planning, materials. I mean, these guys were doing just great things. And so here, I think that we're doing some of the same things out at Gomentum Station on a larger scale. But what I learned there is, in ITS, so Intelligent Transportation Systems, one of my mentors, Gordon Martz, called me in his office. I just got appointed as the Deputy District Director for Maintenance and Operations in Stockton, District 10. And he said, hey, I need you to oversee some kind of an ITS project. Now, I don't really know what that is, but we got sued on the cross-town freeway. We didn't look at visibility as part of the environmental document. There's a lot of fog at the Mas de Hawaii. And so you're going to put together this fog warning system. I said, I'm the Deputy District Director, Maintenance and Operations. I'm not a project manager. He said, well, today you're the Deputy District Director for Maintenance and Operation, and you're also the project manager for this fog warning sign, because we want you to see this to fruition. And so we coupled together speed loops, backscatter technology for visibility meters. We put weather stations in, Model 500, these big changeable message signs, put 7 of those in. 7 sets of loop detectors that could detect speed, and then the visibility meters with the weather stations. And we installed that, and back in the early 90s. There hasn't been a fog-related accident there since. So when you develop Gomentum Station, you have a research program that is looking at mobility options for safety. How do you provide better mobility options for the underserved? My mom's 86 years old now. I just went home for her birthday, and my younger sister's going to have to tell her when it's time to take the keys away, because my mom is 5'4", as I've told you many times, but she's very formidable, she's very mean, and she's not going to want her keys taken away. And so these research programs, like Gomentum Station, are going to help save lives. They're going to help clean the environment. They're going to help in different options, but the most important thing is we won't have to take the keys away from my mother because she's no longer fit to drive, because that day will come, and I'm worried about my daughter having to come to me to tell me, because I'm really stubborn, as you know, Daddy, it's time for me to take your keys away. Well, hopefully in those days it won't matter.
So what's next?
We went paperless a few years ago, and we've been written about in a number of periodicals and magazines and things like that. And we didn't do it to prepare for the pandemic. We did that to save money. We did that just literally to save money on paper. I use a lot of paper, as you can see. I've gotten rid of a lot of my paper, but I like paper. I like to write things on paper, and I'm old school. New people, young people don't. They use the iPad or they use different mechanisms to get their notes down, and I don't do that. But preparing for the future and going paperless, the team once again, Terry Ann Grover comes in and says, if you really want to save paper, we need to have electronic signatures. Now, okay, let's go get electronic signatures. So she gets the electronic signature that's authorized by the state, Secretary of State, and we implement that. Because now people don't have to drive in to get their expense claims. Board members can stay at home, they save gas, they don't pollute the air, they're more efficient with this one purchase of this one e-signature software package. Well, then Ivan Ramirez, the director of construction, comes in and says, hey, we can do all change orders now. And if we do online bidding, because we have this authorized signature, the bid runners don't have to come in from four corners of LA or wherever they're coming in from the Bay Area, from Fresno or wherever, to submit their bids to us. These little things have really prepared us for the future. And so what's next for me in the future is, I think that in my case, I have a lot of experience that I can share with organizations, entities, consultants, contractors, but I think I'm going to end up going into the tech industry. I've always been enamored by the ability of the tech industry to make things happen. They seem like they're not as bureaucratic in some ways as maybe the state is. And by the way, this organization is not very bureaucratic. I mean, we can get decisions made very quickly. I think our record change order signing is a day. And we pay our contractors in 5 working days or less. And that was an edict that I gave just to make sure that we could do it. And we do it, and now that's just standard. And so I think in my case, I think I'll go out and hopefully into the tech industry and take a look at what they have to offer. And if nobody offers me a job, then maybe I'll go back and just be retired. I have this beautiful brown Lazy Boy easy chair, and I'll watch the Hallmark Channel during the holidays.
So Randy, do you have any advice for the next person who's going to be sitting in your seat, the next executive director?
Actually, I do have some advice for the next executive director. I left 3 envelopes like I had from Bob McClary in my upper drawer here. And he said, whenever you get into trouble, open up the envelopes. They're numbered 1, 2, and 3. So of course I was in trouble right away. I think Mayor Taylor was a chair at the time, getting on my case. And so I opened up the top drawer here. I pulled open envelope number 1. I read it. It said, blame the last guy. I said, hey, that's Bob McClary. He did this. And so I was able to avert a bad situation, save my job. So then I tore the envelope up, put it in the recycle bin. I got into trouble again. Shortly thereafter, I opened up the drawer again. It seemed to work. Pulled out envelope number 2, ripped it open, and it said, reorganize. So I said, Chair Pierce, Julie Pierce, I think we need to reorganize. She goes, that's a good answer, Randy. So I put this thing in. I'm thinking, thanks a lot, Bob. So then I'm in real deep trouble. Now again, I opened up my envelope and it said, prepare 3 envelopes for the next guy. So that's when I'm leaving the next executive director, is 3 envelopes. Hopefully they work for that person as well as they've worked for me.
Nice. I think you should lean back, put your feet on the desk, put your hands behind you and say, don't forget to just take time to think.
The other bit of advice I would give the next executive director is some advice that I got many, many years ago from Lee Dieter, who used to be the deputy director of maintenance and operations at Caltrans. I was the division chief of maintenance at the time. And I had done a report, and I gave him the report. I was very proud of the report. And he thumbed through the report and he said, "Who did this?" And I said, "I did this, sir." He said, "Please close the door." And so I went to the door and I closed the door. I'm thinking, wow, I'm getting accolades in private here. This is great. I sit down expecting all this wash of accolades to come over me, and I'm just standing prepared to take it. And he said, "What do you think I pay you for?" And I said, "Well, you pay me to do reports like this, and you pay me to put 8 hours in, you pay me to work hard." And he said, "How many employees do you have?" I said, "I think we have, I don't know, 6,000 people in maintenance now." He goes, "You don't think one of those 6,000 people could have done this report, maybe 2? I said, "Well, now that you put it that way," I said, "I guess so." And he said, "Do you know what I really pay you to do?" I said, "No, I guess not." He said, "I pay you to think. I want you to take 10 minutes out of your day every day, put your feet up on that desk, lean back, and think about how to make this place more efficient, better. Assume nobody else is doing that. Think about the future. What do we need to be working on? How do you make the place more efficient? How do you make it safer? Just spend 10 minutes out of the day, and let's see where that takes you." And so that's the other bit of advice, without the close the door and no accolade situation. That's the other piece of advice I would give any leader, actually, but specifically the one here, is take time out of your busy schedule and think about the future.
What Randy doesn't know is whenever we don't have anything to do, we all do this. And then when he walks by and goes, "What are you doing? What are you working on?" we say, "We're thinking. We're thinking about the future."